Hey, sorry about that. Blue screen. But yeah, Caleb being the only one to defend her, because he knows what a strong and mostly positive support structure that the Traveler has been.
Yeah.
For her. And to have everyone and Bo threatening again.
Yes.
To kill the Traveler.
And then reiterating the promise to do it even after she says no.
Yeah. Very much, I was like, okay. It's almost like this is an Empire thing.
Yeah.
Because in that moment, to me, Bo was Trent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Asking Caleb to kill his father and mother.
Yeah. Yeah, for the first half, my MVP is split. First half, second half. But this is a big reason why Caleb is my pick for the first half.
Okay.
He's a close runner. This combined with just a lot of the flavor role playing he did with, the tongues,
Yeah.
and the whole accent thing,
That was good.
That was great. And I pull out my spell book, put it aside, put Caliana's wand, and if you notice, he always lists the book and the wand and then something when. I think this is when he's creating a new spell. He's researching a new spell. And I think we're going to see another Widowgast spell with the new level. Because he did something similar right before he got the Web of Flame. And
see, I had a different interpretation of that.
And I think that's him role-playing out the studying.
I don't think you're necessarily wrong, because you might be right. But I had an inclination that, and we don't have any information on this.
Yeah, this is pure speculation.
From Liam or Caleb,
right?
From the show or Talks. But I think his method of doing magic, of using the component pouch, is from his training at the university.
Okay.
And I think in that moment, he's debating leaving behind the component pouch and going to a focus.
Okay.
Because the wand is a spellcasting focus.
Right.
And I think in Liam's mind, the spellcasting focus bordered too close to the cleric thing. This thing has power because I believe it does, and it's channeling my magic.
Right.
And the reason I think that's the debate he's having, that's what he's considering, is it was the stained glass that he's messing with. The component pieces. Faith. Power.
Gotcha. I can see that.
So I think we may see him change to the wand.
Okay. I can definitely see that. Yeah. I think they're both valid theories. I think they're both, and only time will tell at this point. But yeah, in my mind, because he's done it a couple of times where he's put the book out, put the wand in the ground, and just studying and researching. He says,
or he has his books out and he's tapping the wand.
Yeah. And usually, the next level up, he's got a new created spell. So, my mind, that's what he was doing. And but they're 12th, so next level they get 7th level spells.
Yeah.
So.
Now I'm wondering
what it might be.
Yeah, I'll have to put some thought into that. Because before I come up with an idea of what he might be thinking, I have to discount what's already out there.
Yeah.
Which requires some research. But
yeah, we should do that next week. We should speculate if he is creating a spell, what kind of spell is he creating?
Yeah. But after the Hero's Feast, that leads to the next major portion.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, I guess you started off by talking about your MVP. And I'll talk about my MVP by leading into this, segueing into this, which is Yasha.
Okay.
Ashley is my MVP. And I wanted to give her MVP for the whole episode.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I still might. But we'll get to that when we get to the fight. But Yasha's vision,
yes.
Once again, Travis, my avatar at the table. Because, I was basically doing the same thing that Travis is doing during that scene.
Yeah.
And that scene is peak Mercer for me. Because Matt does pre-prepared stuff like that really well. And I think that was probably the best that he has read a player in the last couple episodes. When Ashley had her nervous.
Yeah.
And she sort of climbed up a little bit, and Matt trickled out a little extra to bring her along.
Mm-hmm.
But the imagery that he used in that vision was awesome. And I'm like, man, I don't know if I ever get close to that. But
so, question: how long is it? Do we wait for the next level up, or is it as soon as she pops her wings that we see the change, or has it happened yet?
Hasn't happened yet.
Okay.
She hasn't really faced her past. And to me, that is the cornerstone of that evolution.
Mm-hmm.
This dream was the outright speaking of the promise. This was the Stormlord saying, if you can prove it, this is what you get.
Okay.
And it was also her, if we're talking the hero's journey, it was her crossing of the threshold.
Okay.
It was not the completion of her journey. It's the beginning. Where you can view her previous dream at the Giants encampment as her refusing of the call.
Okay.
And not necessarily that she refused it, but that she failed to accept the call.
Okay.
And shortly thereafter, she falls. Mm-hmm. She goes into falls in under Laughing Hands and Oban's control. And then they get her out of that, and now she's back on the upswing again, and now she's accepted the call to action.
So it could be, I don't know. I mean, depends on how long, campaign goes, because they're going to the north, which we're pretty sure they are. Her story's on the back burner for a long time.
Not necessarily. Because of what you brought up last week.
Okay.
The Draco Lich.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty close to where she grew up.
Yeah, it is. But they're going way north of that.
For now, maybe. Maybe.
So.
But Matt also dropped the next potential location that they have to go on.
Okay.
And that was the Illithid City. But we can cover that when we go through the fight.
But yeah, I mean, I'm waiting. I was wondering, okay, are we going to see it? Because when she flips her subrace, she's going to lose a point in strength, which is going to bring her back to 18. No modifier change. But it's going to give her a +1 in wisdom, which brings her to a 10.
Mm. And we'll have to see if Matt makes mention of any physical changes in Yasha to reflect the loss of strength.
Well, yeah, that, and when we see the change on the placard, we'll know she's changed.
It's true.
When her stats pop up and it says 18 strength and 10 wisdom, we know as soon as she pops her wings, it happens.
Yeah. I kind of hope it didn't. But I may be completely wrong.
Yeah.
In the fact that Matt's going to make her go back home.
I agree with you for the most part. I don't know that she's got to go back there to face her past, though.
That's fair.
I mean, she's got to deal with the guilt she has and reconcile it in herself. Now, it could be very symbolic, very, cathartic, very, symbolic to go there and have to face it there. But it's not necessary.
That's fair. That's true. It's just usually Matt has adventures around these things.
True.
And that's why I say she's got to go back to face it. But you could be right. Yeah. But one of the things that I wanted to touch on is something that Marisha said.
Okay.
And I'm basically paraphrasing here. Well, after their additional 45 minutes of more kaiju planning and arson. Oh, God, I can't believe we almost passed it by. Caleb, after the vision, Caleb's the only one that fails to save.
Yep.
And this is why I say Gestures was our first or second saddest. This is the competing moment.
Yeah.
With that. And I wish.
And this was another piece of roleplay which arguably he does some stuff in the battle that, arguably he could be, for me, MVP the whole time.
Yeah. But I'm so sad that he didn't get to play in that space more.
Yeah.
I kind of almost wish he had counterspelled the spell.
Yeah.
But yeah. I
like that they rock, paper, scissors for who had to waste a spell slot to.
Yeah. And that's the other thing, like, Yeah. If he had just said, no, save it. We'll take care of it after the fight.
Yeah.
So he'd have, maybe a day. Because really, they missed out on sort of the blessing that the Traveler was going to be offering his followers, in the sense that taking the weight of memory off of them could be a blessing. And Yasha flirted with that concept when they first found out it could happen.
Yeah.
But she didn't go all the way there. And I just wish that he had a little longer in that space. Although
could have been interesting. It may not have played out the way you expect, because things were fuzzy and stuff, but it wasn't until after they did the Greater Restoration that, kind of offhanded, they're like, oh, you've never been happier. Yeah, it was,
better this way. Yes. Period. Question mark?
So it was like, would we be in that space that he was happier without the memories and stuff? If, you know what I'm saying? Would it have played out with that? Would he have played that, him being happy, if someone hadn't said it after the fact?
I think because it was so short a time, he's not going to be... There won't be any feelings of bitterness, I don't think.
Right.
Whereas, if it was... We really should save our big hits for the fight. We'll do the restoration after. Kind of thought process. And he had been able to exist in this being free. And what would have happened? What was the potential for Widow Jest?
Yeah.
In that, if he's not got the weight and the memory.
Yeah.
Of,
but what I'm saying is, until someone said that after the fact, it wasn't really clear that much of his memory had gone. He still remembered who everyone was. He just couldn't remember what they were doing here.
Yeah.
So he remembered coming on the ship. So that means he may have remembered things further back still.
No. The way Matt described it and the way Liam was playing it, all of his previous is gone. Where he came from, his killing of his parents, Trent, it was all gone. Because that's how it's been for everybody else. They don't remember it. And Caleb really, on some level, wants to, if you're going to forget something, that's what you're going to want to forget.
Right.
So, yeah. So yes, more talk about Kaiju. They burn 2 ships. 2 ships by the entrance. Probably the last 2 to get there. Probably the people from those ships are still alive in Vo.
Yeah.
So, Vilya's concern about their inviting the Dragon Turtle to destroy all the ships may prove to be valid, because they destroyed 2 of them. So we'll see. But Marisha's comment: we've planned more than ever, but I don't feel prepared at all. Yeah, was basically the gist of what she said. No, not really.
They weren't, because when it came down to push versus shove, they all went with different aspects of the plan.
Yeah.
No one was on this, almost no one was on the same page.
Yeah.
So they weren't prepared.
Yeah. And it's because they didn't talk about spell preparations, orders of operation. They didn't talk about what do we expect Vokodo to do.
Yeah.
They
didn't talk about that sweet Wild Mother combo we talked about last week.
And they almost did that. Well, they almost did it. And the thing is,
except he held it for Caleb, not for
yeah. But the thing is, they were in the perfect initiative order. That he doesn't have to hold anything.
Yeah.
He just has to wind up forward and let him go.
Yeah. And that's what. And when they were rolling initiative and they put it in order, I was like, yes. It can.
Yeah.
And then he says that, and I'm like, yes. And he's like, for Caleb, and I'm like, no.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, well, not only that, but like they discussed all things that were good ideas, but never settled on, like you said, order of operation. This is what we're doing.
Yeah.
And so everyone was like, this one, and it was all a different one.
Well, the thing is like, arguably they did or were going to do everything that we suggested that they do.
Yeah.
Bo goes in.
Yeah, you called the stunning fist.
Yep.
And
burn all of his legendary resistances on it.
And when she did extract aspects, I was like, why is she not using the gloves? Why is she not using, she'd be saving herself this damage. Why is she not using the gloves? Why is she not? And then it gets brought up, and I'm like, thank you.
And then she still didn't use them.
Yeah.
And way back, because we talked about this when Matt gave her the gloves, and the next time that she used them, because we talked about, should that be an action or a bonus action? It's got to be something.
Yeah.
And Matt's like, oh, that's my fault.
Yeah.
It's going to be a bonus action at least.
Yeah. He said going forward, it'll be a bonus action.
Yeah. So yeah, it's that gave me a moment of happiness.
Yeah.
It
would have been worth the bonus action.
Yeah.
Because it would have saved her what? 50 hit points? At least?
More. Almost 70.
Yeah. So.
Because she basically was taking as much damage as she was doing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And she, she's actually my pick for the second half just because, mainly because of that. She led the charge and she tanked while Yasha was charmed the whole time. And, she was the one up there distracting him, keeping him off kilter while everyone else was doing their thing,
Yeah. And Yasha being charmed is why I put her as my MVP for the second half.
And so, yeah, for me, like she did great. Ashley did great.
Yeah.
I love Ashley, but like in the grip of the narrative, Yasha, while had a few moments, did nothing to further the story.
It's true.
She was background character this episode, and that's why she didn't get it from me.
That's fair. Just from a position of prep versus performance, and
performance, yeah, she's
like
amazing.
I don't know. Yes, she didn't do a whole lot in the fight, but her failing the wisdom check ratcheted up the tension.
Yeah.
And her continually failing the save until Caduceus had to cast Bless on her.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, that Bless is why he didn't channel Divinity.
Yeah.
Because if he would have channeled Divinity, it would have tempted forward.
Yeah.
Or perhaps reminded him that Vokodo was prone. And so he would have had advantage.
Yeah.
And he had already Hexblades cursed him.
Yep.
Like, everything was in place.
Everything. was in place
for him to just boom, bam, hope for a 19 or 20 on the dice, dump the 5th level smite, and just do 120 damage.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that was it.
And I loved that Veth did the shoot, take the sneak attack, and then bonus action fire sharpshooter to get that extra, and she did 50 points of damage in that turn.
Yep. And of course we had counterspell showing how clutch a spell it can be. Twice.
Yeah.
Blocking the dimension door and then blocking chain lightning.
Chain lightning, arguably the bigger one.
Definitely the bigger one. You know, dimension door. Now, if it had been a teleport getting out, like a Man of Thought, that would have been huge too. Dimension door just kept him from getting better positioning. You know?
Yeah. Well, Matt's plan, I think, was to dimension door far enough away that spending the action groveling doesn't put him in danger.
Yeah.
Because that's why he was spending the resistances on the stun. Because the stun just screws him.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree. And I think, you know, it was just a matter of positioning for a turn with that.
Yeah, Tofinator. They, like I said, they did everything right, but didn't plan it.
Yeah.
Including, like, well, they had planned the banishments, and they did it, and Jester leading the way with command, the low-level spells to pick at the legendary resistance, Caduceus with the Bane. And once again, almost every mistake in this fight was in the player's favor.
Yeah.
Vokodo saved on the Call Lightning, and Matt didn't redirect it in the first round.
Yeah.
The next mistake was Ford, doing only 2 Eldritch Blasts, not 3.
Yeah.
But in the grand scheme of things, not important. Not a big deal. The missing on the not redirecting the Chain Lightning was big, because that was hit points off of Vokodo and not hit points on the players.
Yeah.
But the attempted coordination between Sam and Travis did not translate to an attempted, you know, between Veth and Ford. If they had coordinated, I'm going to make the portal appear here, and then you have the thing come out. Veth could have then, while sustaining the spell, made it think that it was attacking Vokodo, and then doing the psychic damage. But
or why there weren't just tentacles coming out of the void to attack, you know?
Yeah. But one thing I have to say for them, while they all basically were throwing spaghetti at the wall, I don't think I have ever seen them control a bad guy better.
True.
Because, and I was correct, it lasted 3 rounds.
Yep.
Vokodo got 1 action in those 3 rounds.
Wow.
Because Jester made him grovel on turn 2. Turn 1, he bit Yasha. The only other things that he was doing was the legendary actions.
Yeah.
So without those, he would have had nothing.
Yep.
And I would just, I applauded for that. Because I was like, after the second turn, and I was sort of keeping rough track of how much damage they're doing, and you know, like them counting the legendary resistances and that's scratching off, and I was like, okay, this is going good. and then they're not letting him do anything.
Yep.
And then, like we predicted, somebody was going to get banished.
Yep.
And two somebodies did.
Cat and Bo.
No, I thought of a different way that Matt could have handled the distance between them. Probably to the same result, but it might have been funnier. Is to have them both roll a d100, find the difference between their numbers, and multiply it by 100.
Oh, yeah.
Or 1,000, and have that be the feet. Or just have the difference be the miles.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So you mentioned the Lithium City.
Yes. When Vo dies, Matt tells them basically his story. That he was running from a massive city that moved. And that he didn't say, who's living there. But from what I remember of Spelljammer, playing it in middle school, I mean, that's an Illithid city.
Yeah. I just was, I personally, I never got super into Spelljammer. Never played that setting a lot. Just the group I was in didn't play it.
Yeah.
But I wasn't sure if it was an Illithid or a Gith city. Because both Gith Yankee and Gith Zeri have floating cities there.
Yeah.
And I believe it's the Gith Yankee have one that's actually, their city is built on the corpse of a dead god. Which is what spawns the Morkoths that Vokodo was one of. He was modified. Because they're from not necessarily the one from the, they're from a dead god floating in the astral sea.
The Gith Yankee aren't hungry. They're not all one hive mind, which is basically what Matt described.
Okay.
And being hungry.
They are the warlike ones, though.
Yes. And we may see them ally with them if they ever go to that city. But if I'm right, the Mighty Nine may have killed a potential ally against the Chained Oblivion. Because I think that Illithid city that it was running from may have been worshipping the Chained Oblivion as a means to break down the gate so that they can invade Exandria. So now it could be an incidental potential ally, but Matt has done that in campaign 1.
Yeah.
Where they befriended the Illithid. What was his name?
Chlorota.
Chlorota, that's right. Where they befriended Chlorota against all odds.
Yeah.
And had the villain turn at the end of that, which was
For sure, inevitable trail. Sudden but inevitable trail.
Yes. So it wouldn't be necessarily unheard of. Now, it's also not necessarily possible for the motives of the players and the motives of Traveler, and that happened. Because if they had spoken to Vokodo, say they hadn't burned the ships, and they had gone in to present another offering or to treat, and Caduceus says, I know you're running from something. And they go down that dialogue tree to try to tease from him why and what. And kudos to Matt that he didn't give that information in the vision to prompt that potential parlay. And also kudos that it didn't come down that way.
Yeah.
Like Matt gave them just enough of the bits that they were missing. Like if Caduceus hadn't done his divine intervention, they fought Vokodo and killed him and had this vision, then he has foreshadowed what he wanted to foreshadow without the need of Caduceus' divine intervention. And I think what he wants to foreshadow is that city. And them bringing the essentially the astral dreadnoughts, which when they first went there, we talked about how they could be connected to the Chained Oblivion. And if it's running from them, so this week. Well, was there anything else we wanted to talk about?
Well, at the end, they finally get him banished.
Yeah. Oh.
And then they have the argument, taking up almost the whole minute, of do we leave him there because we've won, we've freed everybody, or do we bring him back just to get the gold from them?
Which I think Matt doing that was because he needed them to kill Vokodo to give them the exposition that he needed to foreshadow what's coming.
Well, I mean...
And you can always trust in greed.
Greed wins out, but how much of that do they need to give? How much of that is going to be disputed among the villagers of Bo?
Arguably, all of it.
That was mine. That was, you know.
Well, the real question is Matt finally, are we going to see any small piece of encumbrance?
Yeah.
Matt saying, okay, there's all this treasure. How are you getting it back?
Yep.
Tophernator, any idea what's in the treasure pile? I mean, aside from what the Mighty Nine gave, we know that there's a giant emerald. I think there's going to be a lot of gems because they've been digging those out.
I think because then they talk about something and they were kind of thinking like it's not a cloven crystal as in a key for Ukatoa, but they were describing something similar they had seen. I think Vilya was talking about different stuff that had come across because they asked, "Did you see something that looked like this?" She's like, "Maybe, I think."
Well, that was the giant emerald.
Okay, because I was thinking possibly one of the keys for one of the other two.
Maybe
is there.
And I was thinking that maybe the Dracolich's phylactery may be there. Unlikely.
Yeah.
But not impossible. Depending on... Because a lot of it has to do with what kind of people came here. We know that there was a big trade ship, but not what it was carrying. There were a lot of fishing ships. Like, most of the people there are not going to have a lot of stuff.
Right.
And a lot of the, like, by mass, a lot of that may have been knickknacks that the villagers of Vo made that aren't worth anything beyond, maybe a 15 to 25 gold piece art piece at most.
Yeah. I think there'll be a few magical, high-level magical items. Or level-appropriate magical items. Like one or two.
I think we can expect whatever Vilya had on her. Which we don't know what that would be.
Right.
But I don't know what a Keyleth have at 12th level. You know.
Yeah.
So that probably. We may have some magic armors from some of the warriors in town. We may have some silver weapons.
Yeah.
Because we don't know the history for the lycanthropes that are in town. Maybe someone came to the island hunting them.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure.
We may have some elemental gems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really wide open.
The thing is Matt never described particular items on their back.
I think the big treasures are not going to be from there per se. It's going to be Caduceus getting the new staff from Keyleth that we talked about.
Yeah. That's going to be so good.
And I'm still holding out hope that we'll see a Ford Vandrin reunion, as Vandrin now has his memories, and when Vilya brings the heroes, Vandrin recognizes Ford.
Or not Vandrin. But one of the things that I wish had been asked when Ford did the Mask of Many Faces to look like Lokash, is there a resemblance?
Yeah. My heart is still stuck on that one orc they met in the woods and Ford never
couldn't bring himself to talk to. Yeah?
Like, my heart of hearts wants that to be Ford's dad.
Yeah. It would be strange that the two coastal parents, absentee, went into the Empire. I think that would be too much of a coincidence.
True.
But he described Lokash as live, which is sort of adjacent to how Ford has been described.
True.
Because Ford's not a big, beefy orc either.
True. That's true.
So that's where my brain is in.
The flip with that is we don't know that he went north to the Empire. It could be that when she was pregnant, Mom went south to the coast and gave up Ford.
Yeah.
Or it could be that he was heading to the Empire and had to go through there, and that was just like a one-night stand.
Historically speaking, it's more likely Dad goes to sea, Mom dies in childbirth, and then Dad never comes back. Because he was left as a baby.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, she could have died in childbirth, but that doesn't mean it wasn't a one-night stand or that she didn't leave, you know.
Yeah. That's true. That's fair. But yeah, next episode, that's going to be it's going to be the treasure grab.
Treasure grab.
Do you think Matt's going to have a time? He's going to bring out, because my thought is he's bringing out the sand timer, and they have to collect, and then GTFO before the volcano properly erupts.
Yeah.
And then dealing with the fallout of people of Vogue getting their memories back.
Yeah.
And the two ships that they sank. And Traveler Con.
Yeah.
But I think...
Contacting Keyleth.
Well...
Traveler Con, I think, might be pushed to an episode. Because there's a lot to get in. And I think Traveler Con's going to be more than just a post-break thing. Either that or it'll start and continue to the next episode. Because I'm not sure it's going to be Traveler Con anymore. It might be a Traveler Vengeance. If she takes to heart anything they said about, you know, friends call each other on their bullshit, and does she call him on stuff?
But she doesn't want to call him on his bullshit. all she wants from the Traveler is for him to be her friend again and to be available to her all the time. So whatever she has to do to make that happen is what's going to happen.
Unless she feels pressured to do so. And if they push her, she may, that's the whole thing. That's why I think TravelerCon's going to take more than just part of an episode, and I think it's going to get pushed.
The pusher in me, the narrative push, is TravelerCon happens post-break. The realist in me, and how good you have been in predicting their time frames, I must concede the point that we will probably deal with the fallout from Vokodo's death and the people of Vo getting their memories back pre-break. And then the remainder of the episode post-break will be them planning for TravelerCon.
Planning and welcoming the people arriving.
Potentially contacting Keyleth.
Yeah.
But I'm not 100% sure Jester has the 3rd level spell slot for it. But she probably does. Okay. So the other possibility is they sort of deal with the people of Vo. They help them plan to outfit a ship. Vilya is happy with everything, and she says, I'm going home.
Yeah.
And then it's a matter of do the Mighty Nine say, can we come with you or not?
Yeah.
And that only happens if Jester has talked to Keyleth.
Yeah.
If Jester sends a message to Keyleth, they go. If she doesn't, they don't.
Yeah.
I think. Or maybe they set it up and then they go with her to Zephyra on the understanding that, Vo needs you.
Mm-hmm.
But we want to make sure that you get home.
Yeah.
If you can, we can go with you to Zephyra and then you can bring us back. So we're here for TravelerCon and you can get stuff for the people of Vo to help them get to where they need to be.
Yeah.
I can see that happening. That might happen this next episode.
They could also wait till after TravelerCon, go with her to Zephyra, and who knows, she may have. We know at least the northern part of Wilde Mount, where Tarian's from, Keyleth has been to. So Keyleth could take them there, which puts them right there on the way up to the north.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
That could be the route of travel.
Although I think they still need to stop into Zadash so that they can talk to...
I know we're going over, but there's no talks. That's the other thing we wanted to talk about. Veth said something very telling. And I'm wondering, is travel... And we talked about possibly this before. We're kind of thinking no, but is TravelerCon the end of Veth's travels with the Mighty Nine? Because when Vilya talks about fighting with them, Veth's concern is, no, you've got a family to get back to. You've got a kid. And Veth is in the same situation. Husband and kid out here risking her life. Does Vila's story hit too close to home for Veth? And she wants to go back to her family.
If Matt has prepared this right, it could be the final nail in the coffin of Veth going home before the story's done.
Yeah.
Because if they go with her to Zephyra and she sees Keyleth and Vilya reunited, and Keyleth says, it was good that you left. I'm happy you're home. But I wouldn't be who I am if you didn't come home.
But what if she doesn't say that and
then Beth goes away and Sam's playing a different character.
Yeah. So that was the other thing that I almost forgot. I'm like, that was a huge moment. Like, that was a huge trigger in my head when it happened. I'm like, oh shit. This has got to be hitting close to home for Beth. Seeing Delia, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, even just though, what if we hadn't gotten Bakoto? What if we had fallen to Bakoto and lost our memories? And I forgot my kid, or forgot Luke.
Yeah.
I don't know. You're the one that's a parent. It's easier for you to put yourself in that shoe than me.
I think if Beth if they can sell Beth, and there's definitely plenty of evidence for it, that they need her to finish out, to stop the Chained Oblivion from coming back, or to stop Ukatoa, or to uncover what, like Veth,
to stop the,
Veth will stay to help Caleb get his vengeance. And she was already very much on board with, after the meeting and after TravelerCon, there are the group of assassins going in and cleaning house in the Empire. Yeah. She was on board for that.
That's true.
And that's sort of cleaning up her backyard so her kid has a good place to grow up in.
Yeah.
So if that's the angle that they take and that's the thought process, then that's how it's going to go. We'll have moments here and there where they see Luke.
Yeah.
But,
Okay.
We will see you guys next week.
Yes.
And, where maybe Caduceus gets the Staff of the Wild Mother.
We'll see.